Everything in today's world seems worrying and confusing, and the more humanity advances, the more people's hopes and pains increase, and various psychological diseases appear. Happiness is not the only human capital that we seek. That's why we see everything dark, and we are trapped in tunnels of depression that we create by ourselves and by our negative thinking patterns while being surrounded by this huge number of negative people. Here comes the book Reasons to Stay Alive to present itself as an evidence that depression is not a solution in this complex world, and that it is a lie that every one of us believe and makes us feel things that do not exist in the real world, and choosing depression to face the harshness of reality is not always the best choice. Reasons to Stay Alive by Haig. We face many moments of failure in our lives, and each one of us faces these moments in his own way, but the most dangerous thing in these moments is that the human mind makes you face these moments alone. This reality that many people live in different circumstances, that are similar in terms of tragedy and misery, gives man nothing but living in this harsh reality alone. Anyone who lived this experience would like to have only one gift, which is being a normal and ordinary person that can face all the calamities that only exist within his mind. Depression is not something you admit to, it is not something you have to blush about, it is a human experience that may affect the poor and the rich, the sick and the healthy, the old and the young. Sometimes it turns into a mystery even for those who suffer from it. The depressed is a person who does not want to be happy, he does not have enough time to even think about happiness. He just wants to get rid of the pain, or he wants to get rid of the thoughts that burn his mind without being able to know their sources. Bit to remember, in reality, depression only exists in the human mind. When a person is depressed, he always feels anxious, confused and lost. He loses all the reasons to stay alive. He loses the desire to speak and eat, and the heartbeat increases to the extent that a person feels that he will die. Does the medicine work? Certainly not, as long as ideas reproduce themselves in our minds, and as long as the causes of depression find a basis in our thinking patterns. Medications doesn't work for a depressed person. When depression coexists within a person, he suffers from internal disturbance and constant panic. He is afraid even of his own shadow, and he is possessed by a negative energy that controls his will, so he only sees negative things in this world. It is a dramatic transformation that is difficult to describe or feel except for those who lived this experience or had previously known someone who experienced it. The problem with all this misery that a person lives in is the reverse placebo effect. A person may take any medicine and instantly panic, and this panic increases the moment he feels the effect of the drug, even if it was a good effect. The problem is not with the medicine, it is with the idea that drives our minds. Bit to remember, medication is not the solution for depression. Life is a confusing mystery, as a person in this vast universe only sees its actual aspect, or what is directly under the perception of his senses. We are made up of billions of cells, and our brain alone have 100 billion brain cells, and we hardly notice that we are an infinite universe. Most of the time we do not feel the near-infinite nature of our physical selves, and we simplify by thinking about ourselves in terms of our larger pieces such as head, hands, and feet. A similar thing happens with our minds. In order to cope with living, they simplify themselves, as we do not see that depression is a kind of quantum physics of thought and emotion. We are, in fact, vast and complicated as the universe. There are large areas within our structure that need to be explored and understood. Psychologists may be right when they said that humans might have evolved too far. When we suffer from depression, we must note that it is a basic obstacle to life. When you are depressed, your brain loses activity and the ability to move. You will never get a reprieve, you will always live in terror. This is not a physical pain that you can easily overcome. It is an idea that must be eradicated in order to live your life. Bit to remember, man is vast and complicated as the universe. A depressed person lives in a padded cell where no one can feel his misery, just like a prisoner, except that the depressed person lives this situation in a different way, that is, it is a state of intellectual isolation. The idea that makes a person depressed imprisons him inside an unrealistic feeling, and at that time he feels lost and chronically anxious, and begins to look for salvation outside the limits of his mind as if he is hypnotized. When someone feels lost, he hides all signs of stress, and does all he can to appear normal. As for what is going on in the subconscious, only you and your creator know its truth. When a person goes through or suffers from this kind of mental agony and terrible mental illness, he begins a conflict with a group of toxic and deadly thoughts, and he may sometimes think of suicide, hoping that he will find something that will save him. But is this the solution? Absolutely not. Depression is not a shame. It is a human experience. It's no one's fault. It is enough just to diagnose the disease accurately and find an accurate solution. Bit to remember, depression is not a shame, it's a human experience.